Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sports Today. It's been a very eventful day of sporting action, and I'm coming to you live after, or rather at the conclusion of the Hungarian Grand Prix in Formula One. Now, of course, we know that the Hungarian Grand Prix was going to be the last race before the month long summer break. So, obviously, whichever team managed to end up winning this race would be the team that, in many ways, would benefit the most going into the break, of course. And it was expected coming into the weekend that Ferrari would be the strongest team in terms of how it is that their car was going to be handling on the circuit. However, what Ferrari have in speed, they tend to lack in strategy. And once again, their strategy calls were pretty debatable to say the least. We're going to get to that in just a bit. But first off, congratulations to the winner. That's the defending world champion, Red Bull Racing's Max Verstappen. Remember, he started the race from 10th on the grid because towards the end of qualifying last time on Saturday, he was reporting some issues when it came to his power. So he ended up not being able to put in a proper lap. He had to start the race in 10th. But today he had taken on a new engine, and because he's not past the amount of allotted engine units or particular certain parts of the power unit that he was allowed to take on, he didn't get a penalty. He started in 10th, and well, some good strategy calls from Red Bull and some very poor strategy calls from Ferrari ends up costing Ferrari the win once again. I mean, I don't understand how is it that you can have a car or you can have cars on second and third and end up the race finishing fourth and sixth. And what's worse is that it is your driver who should be a title contender is finishing in sixth. What exactly is going on at the Scuderia? I would love to be a fly on the wall in Maranello, but unfortunately that's not the case. However, I am here to talk about the race, and of course, Verstappen, as I said, showed plenty of speed throughout. You recall that he was making overtakes like crazy, even in the first phase of the race. Eventually, it was the pit strategies, of course, that really helped him. He pitted earlier, got on the medium, so he had two stints on mediums, and it turns out that as there are three compound tires in a weekend. You have the softs, you have the mediums, and you have the hards. So generally speaking, you will start the race on the mediums and then look to go on to the hards. You reserve softs for, of course, qualifying. This time around, however, Verstappen started on the mediums, had a slight, and then he made his change also and went back onto the mediums because it was the mediums that was best suited to this particular circuit. In fact, the only other compound that tend to have worked well was, of course, the softs, as you saw with Hamilton, because he was on the softs on the last stint of the race. Remember, they waited a long time to pit him because, again, he was doing very well on the mediums. So because of that, they could afford to make him wait as long as possible before he pitted. And then when he did get to pit, got the tires up to temperature, and then when they finally, got up to speed, you saw he was absolutely, he was racing that thing like a rocket. He got past Sainz with minimal effort. He got past Russell, and the best news for the Mercedes fan, aka me, as well as the others around the world, another double podium weekend. So what Mercedes do tend to lack in terms of pure raw speed when it comes to the Ferraris and the Red Bulls, they more than make up for when it comes to good strategy calls as well as reliability. And that has been the main reason why they've done as well as they have this year. Of course, they would rather be fighting up front at the front of the grid for the championship, but their car has improved massively as the season's gone on, and they are now consistently getting podium finishes. So that is good progress, of course. But the key here, of course, is that whether or not they can sustain that progress and maybe, just maybe, get to a point where they can be comfortable when it comes to competing for race wins. I think they're getting there. But of course, a lot of the reason why they finished as high as they have here is because of the poor Ferrari calls. And of course, I'll take a few of you guys' comments because I'm seeing quite a few. Shubhan Goyal says, "What a race!" And Lewis and Max showing why they are the best drivers. I agree. Ferrari bad at strategies. Well, I have to agree with that as well. And of course, as Love Rami points out, Supermax did very well from P10 to P1. Should be the driver of the day if you ask me. The only other close contender was Hamilton, but he went from P7 to P2, so I would also give it to Verstappen. And as Rohan Shetty points out, Ferrari and strategies, they just don't go well at all. Absolutely. I mean, it's like oil and water at this point. What exactly are the think tank and Maranello doing? I guess they're not probably thinking that much. Anyway, another comment from Love Rami, and this is the thing that the key point when it comes down to it, is that Ferrari were quite confused with their tire strategies. First the mediums, then the soft, then hard, then again soft. What were they trying to do? Tires only work when you have proper strategy. And he's referencing a meme which I can't take on air, whose name I can't take on air for obvious reasons. But well done. I appreciate that meme point out. And yes, merry indeed for the Mercedes team, because that's 2 straight weekends now with a double podium finish. And that, of course, means that they're going to be boosted up real nice in that Constructors' Championship. Now, remember, the Constructors' Championship is important because the amount of prize money that, comes from, of course, the series. The biggest chunk of it is dedicated to this constructor. So the team championship matters a lot when it comes to the amount of prize money they'll get and the amount of money that they can invest going into the next season. So the fact that Mercedes are up and up there when it comes to, the constructors championship, very good. But anyway, now let's look over some of the other results as well, because for me personally, I have to say this, it was a very eventful race. I mean, I don't recall the last time, of course, there was last year as well, the Hungaroring, very exciting race. You had an unexpected winner in Esteban Ocon. But I don't recall a race at the Hungaroring with this much overtaking taking place, which goes on to prove that indeed when you come to, we remember 2022 was supposed to be like a season of new regulations and of course making raceable cars. So in that sense, it was very important that these cars would hold up at circuits like Hungary, which despite being a very challenging technical circuit, not the best for overtaking, but we saw a lot of overtaking today. We saw a lot of close racing, and that's wonderful. This was arguably one of the litmus tests for these new regulations, and they've aced them in that regard. We saw a lot of good racing, and I'm getting more comments on Ferrari's strategies. Steny Silas says, kick Ferrari strategies out. What strategist? I mean, who exactly is making their strategies? So anyway, Shubhan Goyal says that Charles Leclerc looked the fastest on mediums, and then why do they put the hard tires then? Your answer is as good as mine, because if you ask me, based on what I was watching in the race as well, it was in fact the medium tires that looked the best race tire. The softs were good, but of course you saw early on George Russell when he took the lead, when he was leading the race from pole, his softs were deteriorating very quick. So softs are only good for a short window. And then in that sense, I would agree with you that, even the Ferraris look the best on the mediums. So why would you not keep them on the mediums? Why would you take them onto the hards? The hards were not working well for anyone. And I just don't get it. I don't get their strategies. I don't understand what is going on that team. And I really hope that they can take the summer break to kind of sort themselves out, because it's clear that they have a fast, albeit unreliable car, but their strategies are horrible. They really don't deserve to be competing for a championship if you're coming up with strategies like that on the fly. And you're not prioritizing your number one driver. I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of Carlos Sainz. I think he's an amazing driver. But based on the results that have come so far this season, it is clear that Leclerc should be your championship contender. And they're not prioritizing him. Even early in the race, he was consistently asking on radio, ask Carlos to move, ask Carlos to move. They'll move him over. I don't understand the point. Why do you want to keep I understand letting your drivers race if A, you're in the midfield and you're kind of in a win-win situation when it comes to team points, or B, if you're the 2 fastest cars on the grid belong to one team, which is what it was, if you remember, in the start of the turbo hybrid era when Mercedes had Hamilton and Rosberg racing it out. In that case, I understand it, but in this case, they're fighting with Red Bull and Max Verstappen, and they're not prioritizing Leclerc. I don't understand that at all. As Prakash says, give Max the championship already. You know what? I have to agree with you in that sense, because this time around, he's just absolutely cruising to the championship, and more importantly, he has a team that is dedicatedly backing him, and he's delivering the results as well. In Ferrari's case, sometimes Leclerc is delivering the results, sometimes he's crashing out of races or not doing well enough. Sometimes he's doing well in the race and Ferrari are disappointing him with poor strategies. Red Bull, you can see very clearly, are prioritizing Max. They made Checo move ahead, let him go by early in the race as well. So it's pretty clear that they want Max to be winning the championship. And honestly speaking, that is how championships are won. You don't win championships by letting your 2 drivers race when you have 2 other fast cars there. So as Rohin Shetty points out, that going to the summer break, looks like Max will be the world champion. But of course, I have to point out that even last year, going into the summer break, Verstappen was comfortably ahead. And, Mercedes did end up clawing it back later on in the year. So I'm not writing anyone off yet. But of course, Mercedes were a well-oiled machine. Ferrari are not that at this point. And Love Rami points out, I'm going to take a few more comments, then we close this up. I'll quickly sum up the rest of the results. Leclerc did overtake Russell. After that, going to pit often doesn't work every time. I agree. It's very, very disappointing. And Piyush Palaban, to answer your question, I don't think Leclerc will leave Ferrari for Mercedes. Although, if they keep disappointing him like this, I wouldn't be surprised if he looked elsewhere. Anyway, I'll just a quick wrap of the rest of the results. We know the podium finishers. So you had Verstappen in first, Hamilton second, George Russell third. In fourth place, you had Carlos Sainz. Fifth place, Sergio Perez. And in sixth place, Charles Leclerc. Remember, Charles Leclerc is a title contender. He's finishing sixth, and through no fault of his own, but bad strategy calls. Seventh is Lando Norris, who's actually done pretty well to hold off both Fernando Alonso in eighth and Esteban Ocon in ninth. Because if you looked at it for pure speed, the Alpine cars actually were on pace quicker than the McLarens, but Norris, good drive from him, I would say. And the final points place goes to Sebastian Vettel, who we remember announced his retirement, and he announced his intentions to retire at the end of this season. So he gets that final points finish. Good on him that he gets that, although it did look like Stroll let him go by rather easily to there, but of course that's the nature of the beast, right? So obviously these are the points finishers, and I'm very, very glad that, considering F1 is going to be going into a month-long summer break now, that we got a race this good to kind of like keep us on tenterhooks once the season resumes. I'm sure all of us, you guys who are watching me here and leaving your comments, me as well, we will all be waiting anyway, but I'm jumping at the bit because it's been such a good season of racing that I'm just waiting for when it will be that point when, of course, F1 will be back in our lives. But of course, that's not the case. So to sum it up, Max Verstappen takes the win, double podium finish for Mercedes. Ferrari, very quick car, but let down by their strategies once again. And anyway, I think I'll take your guys' leave for now because I've been talking on for quite a while. But thank you all so much for joining me. If you enjoy what it is that we do, please don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and of course, leave us a comment. We do like reading what it is that you have to tell us. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Last but not least, do tap the bell icon so you know when it is we're going live. And of course, I can't forget, follow us across platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're there everywhere. And download the SportsTech app for more such sporting related breaking news coming your way in text form, of course. Thank you all so much for joining us. I've been Sharon Reyes, and I'll be joining you again through the remainder of this day. But bye-bye for now.